11 or 12 years ago, one of the businesses that I was part of was a liquor distribution business. I was presented with the opportunity to attend this function for this large gala. I think it was the Producers Guild Awards or something like that. And so we went to this house and we had a bunch of the different brands that we represented with us. And we were going to do like tastings and samplings for people and just basically be around, make sure that everybody was having a good time. That was our job. And I didn't know where we were going. I just knew that, okay, well, we're going somewhere up in Beverly Hills. And we get to this house and it's a very large home, to be sure. And so much so that they were using carts to get people up the driveway. It was a very long, windy driveway, very grandiose. It was amazing, right? Very beautiful landscaping. And it became very clear very quickly that, wow, whoever lives here is not messing around. And we get there and it ends up being Elon Musk's house.
What if you could build a business in the modern world as big or as small as you want without having to compromise the things that were the most important to you in the very beginning? This is the Wealthy Consultant Talks podcast with Taylor Welch and Mike Walker, as they share with you today their learning lessons from stories in their experiences over the past 10 to 15 years and share with you right here, right now. Let's get into it.
Hey, what is going on, my friends? Mike Walker here with you and another episode of the Wealthy Consultant podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I've got one that I think is going to hit. I think you're going to like it. And it's going to, most importantly, be able to benefit you in everything you do in life and business. Bold claims, very bold claims today, but it's a sweet one, guys. And I want to start off with a story. I want to tell you about something interesting that I found and the importance of, maybe you've heard this phrase, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And I think that's really, really true as long as you live into that and really go through your days looking for examples of that, looking for that to be true. In particular, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we're constantly faced with, an ongoing set of problems. There's always new things to fix. There's new challenges to overcome, right? And one of the things that I think really helps that is the creative process of just thinking through and really paying attention to the details around us. And that's ultimately the topic of today is it's in the details. And these details, if you can see them and acknowledge them for what they are, and most importantly, the opportunity of the meaning that they may have or the ideas that they can spur to help you. I often have found in my own life how random occurrences or just circumstances that come across my path, if I actually take the time to acknowledge them and look at them and try to extract the lesson that is presenting to me, or at least offering me to look at, then there's so much to be gained from what's happening around us and all these little details, all the little nuances that happen. Some are controlled, some are not controlled. And so that's what I want to talk about today is really paying attention to the details and how you can use this to separate yourself from your competition in the market. Here's the cool part, guys. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. It's quite simple. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. It does take effort. Everything good typically does, but it's not that hard. And it's kind of like one of these blue pill, red pill moments. You remember in the Matrix how he's presented with, hey, look, you can choose one or the other, but once you go this route, you can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? This is kind of one of those moments for you. And I want you to embrace this, because if you choose to go down this path of, I'll even say it, of enlightenment, then things start to change. And it all of a sudden, it's kind of like adding a whole nother layer of visibility or a whole nother layer of definition to what you see around you happening. And it really gives you the opportunity to stand out in the marketplace for your clients, for those around you in your network, in your circle, your friends, everything. It will absolutely show. And again, it's a concept that is fairly simple. So let's get into it. So over 10 years ago, I'm going to be dating myself a little bit here, but it was about 11 or 12 years ago. One of the businesses that I was part of was a liquor distribution business. And so it was a wholesale business. So they were the ones that would actually put all the different brands into the stores up on the shelves. They would go to the different restaurants and bars and make sure that all their product lines were fully, represented on the back bar, all the things, right? It's a very big business. And I had the opportunity to work with a lot of the sales teams there and help them get their distribution numbers up and all the things. And this industry, just the nature of, food and beverage and all the things, like there's a lot of events, a lot of concerts, a lot of parties, some really fun stuff that went along with the job. It was actually very grueling, to be honest, just because of the schedules that we had to keep. but it definitely had its perks. And one of the perks was being able to go to these various events and functions and whatnot. And one of these functions that crossed my path was actually at a house in Beverly Hills, one of the most premier areas. I would imagine pretty much anybody listening to me would know where Beverly Hills is, but it's in Los Angeles. It's one of the more premier, residential areas in the country, I would say. And I was presented with the opportunity to attend this function for this large gala. I think it was the Producers Guild Awards or something like that. And so we went to this house, and we had a bunch of the different brands that we represented with us. And we were going to do like tastings and samplings for people and just basically be around, make sure that everybody was having a good time. That was our job. Pretty rough, right? Well, it was really interesting. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew that, okay, well, we're going somewhere up in Beverly Hills. And we get to this house, and it's a very large home, to be sure. And so much so that they were using carts to get people up the driveway. It was a very long, windy driveway, very grandiose. It was amazing, right? Very beautiful landscaping. And it became very clear very quickly that, wow, whoever lives here is not messing around. And we get there, and it ends up being Elon Musk's house. He was actually the one hosting this Producers Guild Award. It was like an after party type thing. And they had red carpet out. They had the step and repeat banner in the back, and they had photographers clicking off, right? And a bunch of people were coming in the door, and it was a big to do for sure. Really, really quite interesting environment. I had never really been exposed to it at that level, at least before. And it was really fun. So we were in there, mixing it up, talking to people and the whole thing. I honestly did not get to talk to Elon Musk. That would have been awesome. But this is really before even his, SpaceX fame and whatnot. He was more known for being the PayPal guy, to be honest. That was his claim to fame back then. I think he was still tinkering with rockets and stuff still, but it was not nearly like what he is now. But to be sure, he's obviously doing quite well for himself. And the home, one of his homes here, he had to prove it. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, we're in this big event, right? And I've been to parties before, I've been to concerts before, big functions before, no big deal, right? But what was really interesting was not so much the famous people walking around or just the very obvious opulence that we're surrounded by, but it was the attention to detail that this party was being thrown. Now, I don't think it was Elon doing it, honestly. I think it was just they were using his house, and he probably said, yeah, cruise on over and use my home. It's cool, because he had the space to do it, right? But what was really interesting was whoever was doing this event had paid a lot of attention to detail, down to very small things, as in when you walked into the library, for example, they were serving champagne. Well, no big deal. That happens all the time, right? Yes, but have you had champagne served to you by someone suspended from the ceiling doing cartwheels on the way down, kind of like Circus du Soleil style, and then pouring your glass of champagne while hanging upside down? If you have, good for you, amazing. I certainly had not. And I was like, wow, that's quite amazing to have to create this entire contraption up into the ceiling in order to scale down 20, 30 feet to pour people champagne upside down. I could have drank the champagne just fine, just by grabbing it off, a server's tray or something like that. But no, it was like, no, we want to make an impression. Walking into the home, there were two ladies that were in these big Victorian style dresses, huge wigs, 3 or 4 feet tall wigs, and they were on stilts. So now these ladies are standing like 10, 12 feet high, really up in the air, but the dress is covering their stilts. And so they just look like obscenely large, tall ladies wearing these crazy wigs and makeup and the whole thing, right? Very over the top, to be sure. But what was interesting was just the way that they would interact with every single guest. Hey, how are you? And whatnot. Like they genuinely invited every single person walking onto the red carpet, going into the home. You were guided around. Hey, we want to show you this piece of the event. Make sure you go and talk to so-and-so or whatever. It just went on and on and on. In the backyard, they had someone walking around in this weird, it was a dress, but it was a metal frame that allowed for glasses to be held by it. So this lady was walking around with this metal frame around her dress that was holding, I don't know, over 100 glasses of champagne. And she's just walking around the backyard, letting people grab them when they wanted them, right? It goes on and on, guys. I won't go into the minutia here, but only to say that as I left there, I thought, wow, that was really wild. But then as I was driving home, I thought, isn't that interesting, the amount of detail they put into this one particular experience? And it started getting me to realize a couple things. Number one, I obviously need to step up my party game. I thought I was a relatively good host, but there's always there's always somewhere better, right? Always some way better to get better. And so that was number one. It's like, okay, interesting. Like I want to pay more attention to when I host events for one, but then it went deeper than that. Then it was more like, well, hang on, what would happen if I took that same mentality into my businesses, into my interactions with people? What would happen if I actually did just go, how could I do this one step further just to make a little bit more of an impact? And that's what I wanted to leave you guys here with today was ask yourself, what would happen, like these sequential things I do on a daily basis, whether it's reaching out to people or, calling my clients or sending an email or holding an online event or doing a call or whatever it is that keeps you busy throughout the weeks. Think about these specific things that you do and ask, how could we make this just a little bit better? Just a 1% difference even, right? Just a little bit different. What could we do that would really just set this one thing apart? See, so many people are looking for the big home runs, right? They want to do these grand things, which is all great. The visionary brain is a beautiful place and there's big things. But what's really interesting is that a lot of the big things are achieved by lots of little things being stacked on top of each other. And so a lot of these small things get missed. And that's what I wanted you guys to think about is the fact that so much of your market, so many of your competitors aren't going to sweat the small stuff. In fact, they'd probably think, well, they won't even notice, like it's not that big of a deal. And yet it absolutely is. You can absolutely separate yourself from the rest of your market by going just that one step further. They say the last mile or that last piece of the marathon is the most spread out. It's the least busy. There's not very many people left around you because not many people are willing to get there, right? The well-paved, proven, wide, smooth road is filled with people, but it's the person that's willing to go off the beaten path a little bit, the person that's willing to like push it just a little bit further. It starts getting pretty empty up there. It's rarefied air. And you don't need to, exhaust yourself in the minutia of all this stuff, but there are opportunities to just take that one last step. Like, wow, most people wouldn't do that. Most businesses wouldn't do that one little thing. And it doesn't take a lot. Like I said, you don't have to do this across your entire business all day long, every day. What I'm saying is pick a few areas in your business, whether they be client facing or internal with your team or with even with your family, like pick a couple different opportunities to create this 1% difference, this little bit over the top where people are like, wow, like you actually thought to do that, right? And that's the differentiator, my friends. Like that is the differentiator. You actually took the time to think about how do we want to serve champagne? Well, what would happen if we had someone come off the ceiling and spin around and pour it to them upside down, right? Now, whatever that means for you in terms of an analogy for your business or life, you get my point, I hope, is that spend just a little bit of time thinking, what would it take to make this one thing just a 1% better, just a little bit more stand out? How can we make it just a little bit more of an impression? I think it's a cool idea, guys, because it really will separate you from the pack. They say excellence is in the details. Give attention to the details and excellence will come. I hope this helps, my friends. We'll see you on another episode of the Wealthy Consultant Podcast. Take care, guys. Talk soon.